I just got done checking my DMs, and the vast majority of the messages were asking me, hey Daniel, what would you build with this piece of wood? Or what would you build with that piece of wood? Well, today I've got several unique projects that I'm going to be showing you how to get built. Most likely you've got some 2x stock laying around your shop. If not, go ahead, run up to your big box store and snag a 2x4x8. I'm going to start by getting 2 pieces of my 2x6 ripped at 2 inches. And I've got a favor to ask. Head down below and hit that thumbs up button to help support the channel. It's free and it really does help. Let me just put this out there. I've got over 300 videos on YouTube with project ideas, plus today's video. Hopefully that will mitigate some of these messages that I'm receiving of grown men giving me the dimensions of their wood. I'm just saying. You should see some of these messages I'm receiving. From the right side of one of the 2-inch rips, pull up at a 1/2 inch and 2 inches, and we'll pull in from the right side of that 2-inch rip to 1 1/4 inches. We'll connect those lines, and we'll get this waist cut out at the table saw. I'll be using my miter gauge to accomplish these notches. We'll get our blade height set to 1 1/4 inches, and we'll slowly cut this notch out. Now, from the bottom of your piece, right at the bottom of the notch, pull up to 4 inches. And at that 4-inch mark, we're going to be making a 45-degree miter. We'll take care of that over at the miter saw. Turn your miter to 45 degrees, and that 4-inch mark will be the long point of our 45-degree miter. Just like so. Now bring those pieces back to your table saw and take your remaining cutoff that already has that 45-degree bevel and line up your other piece with that long point, with the 4-inch piece on the right side of that leftover cutoff. Now mark that same notch and square your lines over, and we'll be taking that notch out of the opposite side as this one. This will all make sense here in just a second. Now take that 4-inch piece and line up the long point of the 4-inch piece with the short point of this leftover piece, and mark the bottom of that 4-inch piece. And that is where you will be cutting this piece after you take out that notch. So what I'm doing is basically called a step method. We're basically just lining up the long point to the short point of our next bevel, working our way up each time. Now, while we're still here at the miter saw, we'll go ahead and turn that back to a 45-degree miter and make a cut right at the edge of our leftover piece. Now bring those 2 pieces back to your table saw and do the same steps with this second piece you just cut and that leftover, lining the bevels up together, this time with the short piece on the left side of the leftover piece. Mark that notch. We'll do the same steps and put the second piece on top of this third piece and mark this very bottom. So basically your biggest and your smallest piece will have that notch on the same side, but that second piece will have the notch on the opposite side. After we get that notch cut, we'll get that mark that we made cut over at the miter saw. Now that that's all sanded down, we'll add a dab of glue, 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 add a dab of glue. We'll add a couple dabs of CA glue to help act as a temporary clamp. We're going to be gluing the 1/2 inch to the 1/2 inch, just like so. You can hit it with a little bit of activator. I'm gonna glue this next side together. Hold pressure for a few seconds. And this is how your piece should turn out. Stepped up 3 times with the front and the back notch on the same side, and that second piece with the notch on the opposite side. If you need to make any minor touch-ups to your piece, go ahead and do that and get some finish on this piece. I'm going to be using some of this oil-based honey stain from Minwax. I'm going to put 1 coat on and let it sit for about 15 minutes. Take some paper towels and wipe it down, and then I'll put a second coat on it, ultimately finishing this piece up. If you take a look online, projects like these are going for upwards of $30 a pop. And that's for 2 of them. At my local markets, a set of 3 like this go for $25 all day long. You can get 6 of these built out of 1 2x4x8. Do a little bit of math, and you got yourself one big ass profit. In my wood shop, after building certain projects, I always wind up with some of these little cubes. Well, for project number 2, I'm going to show you how to flip these little cubes into some hard cash. Let's go. For this particular project, you want some cubes that are at least 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, all the way around. And if you have any with some live edge on it, those will actually work out best. Check this out. Mark the center on each of your cubes at the top. Once you get those centers marked, go ahead and punch those marks. We'll go ahead and stick our cube in our vise, and at that punch mark, we're going to be drilling a 1/2 inch hole down about 1 inch. I'll take some blue tape and add that right at the 1 inch mark I made on my drill bit. That way I know where to stop. We'll get the rest of these drilled out. After I get those holes drilled, I'll do a little bit of sanding. Go ahead and get all that dust removed with a tack cloth. And I'll be using our infamous finish for dummies, shellac-a-lac-a. Once that first coat of shellac dries, I'll get some 400 grit hand sandpaper for my sanding pad, and I'll just lightly give it a little sand. Wipe off that dust, and we'll hit everything one last time with another coat of shellac. You would be surprised at how many people actually have a favorite pen, especially folks that work in an office. At my local markets all day long, I can get upwards of $5 a pop out of 1.5 inch cube. That, my friends, is one way that you can turn your scrap wood into a big ass profit. Now keep in mind, all of the projects that I'm sharing with you come from dimensions shared with me. So for project number 3, I need to get some material milled down at 1 inch thick by 1 inch wide by about 30 inches or so. Once I get everything shaped up at the joiner and the planer, I'll get it cut to its final dimension at the bandsaw. And I've got a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers by subscribing and turning on those notifications for weekly woodworking content. Why didn't y'all tell me I had dust all over my shirt? Here's what I've got. I've got 3 pieces here cut down to 16 inches. And they are 1 inch in thickness by 1 3/8 in widthness. Can I get a witness? Okay, we'll take these over to our miter saw to begin with. We'll start by turning our miter to 45 degrees. We're going to lay our piece with the 1 3/8 width faced up and make a cut right on the very corner of the right hand side. Just like so. We'll grab a second piece, laying it the same way up, but make the cut on the left hand side at the very corner. Just like so. From that long point, we're going to pull down to 10 inches. And I'm actually going to transfer that 10-inch mark onto the opposite side here. And I'll show you why. That 10-inch mark we made is going to be the long point of a 45-degree bevel. So we're going to flip our piece to where the inch thickness is faced up now and make that cut at the long point. So your piece will look like this. Now this project has 2 sides, a left and a right side. This will be our left side. We'll grab our second piece that we started to cut and we'll just transfer that 10-inch mark, lining up our 2 short points together. And we'll line that 10-inch mark up and make a tick mark on our second piece here. And that will be the long point. So your 2 pieces should look just like this. Now grab the 2 cutoffs from both of those pieces, and we're going to keep that long point right there where they're at. And from that long point on both pieces, we're going to pull down to 6 inches, and that 6-inch mark is going to be the long point of the same 45-degree bevel going back toward our other angle. Now grab those 2 smaller pieces and meet me at the table saw. Now bring those pieces over to your table saw, and these are going to be glued together just like so. We'll add it up. I better not do glue. I don't want any miter splines in this, so I'm going to actually be using some 2-part epoxy on these miters. So I've got some 2-part epoxy here. We're going to add that to our bevels here. And you want to be very liberal with this epoxy. I mean, very liberal. What I really like about epoxy is how much work time you have after you glue it. It really allows you to dial everything in. And I'll tape this together just so it can hold itself in place while it cures. Set that one to the side. We'll glue up our second piece. Add a dab of epoxy. You want to spread that nice and evenly all along that beveled edge. All right, we've got these epoxied together, and the dry time on this is about 45 minutes to an hour, but the full cure takes about 12 to 24 hours. So we can still get this project finished today. All right, while these are drying, we need to cut one last piece. We'll grab that third rip that we have, and over here at the miter saw, we'll put a 45-degree bevel with that 1 3/8 width facing up. Now, from that long point we just cut, we'll pull over to 9 inches. And this 9-inch mark will be our next long point. And we'll be epoxying this 9-inch piece in the top. All right, we will let this cure and I will meet you back here. Now that my epoxy's cured, I'll go ahead and hit this with some 120 grit sandpaper. And finally, we'll slap some finish for dummies on it. You've got yourself an awesome book holder, picture frame holder, or even a plate holder. These things at my local markets go anywhere from 20 upwards of 35 bucks, depending on what species of wood you choose to build it out of. I really hope that these projects have inspired you to get in your shop, because now it's your turn to make some sawdust. Scott.